But behind the polished image, Capone was falling apart. He suffered from neurosyphilis, a disease that slowly ate away at his brain. He became increasingly erratic, paranoid, and impulsive. His temper worsened. His decision-making faltered. Inside, the King of Chicago was unraveling, and the federal government was watching. They couldn't tie him to murders. They couldn't pin bootlegging on him directly. But someone had found a weakness. Taxes. The most powerful gangster in America was about to be brought down by a bookkeeper. For nearly a decade, Al Capone laughed in the face of justice. He killed with impunity, bribed judges, owned police departments. He seemed untouchable. But in the shadows, a different kind of weapon was being sharpened. Not a gun, but a ledger. And the man who would take Capone down wore a suit, not a badge. Capone's empire was vast, violent, and profitable. But it also left a paper trail. While Prohibition agents struggled to catch Capone in the act of selling alcohol or ordering murders, a new strategy emerged: follow the money. The Treasury Department's Special Intelligence Unit, later known as the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, began digging into Capone's finances. Leading the charge was Frank J. Wilson, a quiet, methodical agent with a deadly focus. Wilson and his team searched through thousands of financial records, seized ledgers, and interviewed witnesses who had handled Capone's money: bartenders, bookkeepers, front men. Their goal? Tax evasion. Capone never filed a tax return, never claimed income, but everyone knew he lived like a millionaire. And under U.S. law, illegal income was still taxable. In 1929, Capone made a crucial mistake. He was summoned to a federal grand jury for tax-related questioning. Rather than appear, he claimed illness, but then was photographed in California attending horse races. The government pounced. He was arrested for contempt of court and briefly jailed. The message was clear. His invincibility was cracking. Around the same time, Prohibition agent Elliot Ness began targeting Capone's bootlegging operations directly. Ness and his team, dubbed the Untouchables, launched dozens of raids, seizing breweries and intercepting shipments. While Ness couldn't link Capone to murder, he achieved something critical. He crippled his revenue. The king's fortune was bleeding, and behind closed doors, he knew it. On June 5th, 1931, the federal government unveiled its master stroke. Capone was indicted on 22 counts of federal income tax evasion. Weeks later, they added 5,000 violations of the Volstead Act, the law enforcing prohibition. But the tax charges were the main weapon, because unlike murder or extortion, they didn't require eyewitnesses, just math. Capone's lawyers tried to negotiate. He offered to plead guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence, but the judge rejected it. This time, there would be no backroom deals. The trial was set for October, and the U.S. government wasn't taking any chances. United States versus Alphonse Capone began on October 6, 1931. Capone arrived in court looking calm, dressed in a tailored suit, confident his bribes would deliver a favorable outcome. But the judge pulled a bold move. He swapped out the jury at the last minute, preventing any tampering. Over 2 weeks, the prosecution presented a meticulous case. Financial experts traced Capone's income, showing he had spent millions while reporting nothing. Witnesses testified. Documents piled up. Capone's defense was weak. He claimed he was just a gambler, not a criminal boss. The jury didn't buy it. He didn't lose control with bullets, but with books. On October 17, 1931, The verdict came in, guilty on 5 counts of tax evasion. Sentence, 11 years in federal prison. It was the harshest penalty for tax crimes in American history. Capone's fall was dramatic. He went from 5-star suites to a cell in Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. But even behind bars, he tried to maintain power, bribing guards, securing special privileges. That changed in 1934, when he was transferred to the newly opened Alcatraz, the island prison designed for America's worst. There, Capone found no allies, no favors, and no escape. His mental and physical health deteriorated rapidly. The effects of syphilis ravaged his brain. He grew paranoid, delusional, often confused. Inmates said he sometimes talked to people who weren't there. He reportedly spent hours playing his banjo alone in the prison showers. In 1939, Capone was released early due to his failing health. He was just 40 years old, but had the mind of a man in his 80s. He retired to a mansion in Palm Island, Florida, a ghost of the man he once was. No more power, no more empire, just a name that had once terrified a nation. On January 25, 1947, Al Capone died of cardiac arrest, brought on by complications of neurosyphilis. He was 48. The man who ruled Chicago with blood and bourbon died with no crown, no soldiers, no throne. But even now, nearly a century later, his name echoes, not just in crime history, but in the myth of American power. Al Capone has been dead for nearly 80 years, but his legend, it never really died. In fact, in many ways, it only grew. Capone didn't invent organized crime, but he refined it. He built a criminal corporation unlike anything America had seen. He managed territories like markets. He used accountants, lawyers, enforcers, and PR tactics. His gang wasn't just thugs with Tommy guns. It was a machine designed for profit and survival. Today, his methods are studied by law enforcement and criminals alike. From drug cartels to corporate fraud, Capone's playbook remains shockingly relevant. He taught the underworld how to think like businessmen and taught business how to act like gangsters. After his death, Capone transformed from villain to cultural icon. Hollywood couldn't get enough of him. He inspired dozens of films, from Scarface, 1932, The Untouchables, 1987. He was portrayed by actors like Robert De Niro, Tom Hardy, or Ben Gazzara, each adding new layers to the myth. Books, documentaries, TV shows, even comic books, all reimagined Capone in different ways. The ruthless killer, the gentleman gangster, the tragic figure, the American anti-hero. This constant reinvention blurred the lines between fact and fiction. To many, Capone isn't history. He's a symbol. Capone's downfall by tax evasion remains one of the most ironic moments in American justice. It sent a message to future criminals. No one is above the law, not even the most feared man in America. And sometimes, justice comes not with guns, but with paperwork. Today, the IRS still uses the Capone case as a teaching tool. It's a story of how patience, precision, and law outsmarted violence and fear. You can walk through Chicago today and never see his name, but you'll feel his shadow. But beneath the myth lies something darker. Capone's rise was built on blood. Over 500 gangland murders took place during his reign. Families were torn apart, innocents caught in crossfire, justice delayed, lives shattered. His story may be captivating, even cinematic, but it came with a price, one paid by countless people who never made the headlines. For every legend, there are victims who never became famous, just forgotten. In the end, Al Capone's story isn't just about a gangster. It's about consequences. For every mansion he built, there was a family left grieving. For every dollar he made, a life was lost. For every headline he owned, there was someone silenced. He may have become a legend, but he also became a warning.